the SoundCloud tab and hear any show anytime you want.
The Inner Voice Show is a dialogue between the host and the listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I have Sean in studio. This is a show about what matters most in life: our minds, thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. In this show, I'll bring you the latest research, actually two research, about your partner's satisfaction can be the secret to your calmness and longevity. Oh my God, that's awesome. And then we're going to talk to Dr. Douglas Weiss. He's a psychologist, he's a national lecturer on marriage and addiction, and the author of Intimacy, Anorexia. His book is amazing. We're going to go through the book. Now, you can call us at the studio line, 951-922-3532, if you'd like to talk to Dr. Weiss or I. And be sure to listen to my podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and share it with your friends. Give us feedback. Let us know what it is, what the topics are that you like to talk about, or what type of guests you want me to bring. I love to hear back from you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the tip of the week.
Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan, and I have great news for you. I'm offering a special time-limited offer to anyone who's interested in online therapy or coaching sessions. I've developed the awareness integration model, which allows in only 12 weeks to raise your self-esteem and confidence and let go of your thoughts and emotions that produce depression and anxiety for you. So call today to schedule your online session and save $600. Call me today at 818-648-2140. That's 818-648-2140. Or go to www.foojan.com.
So this is the tip of the week. Now, I've been noticing this week the way we look away from our body and soul and how it creates so much misery for us. When we don't like something about our character or a situation, we tend to ignore it, bargain with it, deny it, or look away. The reality persists, and we continue to spend our energy on refusing to deal with the reality at hand. Now, whether this reality is not liking a part of our body, not controlling our eating habits, not disciplining ourselves to do work or exercise, not managing our emotions, not having the ability to say no, not having the ability to ask for what we want, not having the courage to take a stand for what we want, not having the courage to leave a circumstance that we are unhappy with, or have the persistence to keep a commitment, although it's hard. So please reflect. How have you been looking away from your body and soul? What does not work in which relationship, but you persist and insist to stay? So the awareness of your thoughts, emotions, intentions, behaviors, and their impact on every layer of your relationship with yourself and others will help break the pattern of looking away. Becoming aware of how you deal with yourself and people in different situations allows you to be in the driver's seat of your life. Being brutally honest and connecting with yourself will actually make you feel real and feel free. Remember that you can be brutally honest while you are also caring and nurturing with yourself. You don't have to be brutal, does not mean you have to be nasty to yourself. Knowing what you desire, your strengths, vulnerabilities, shadow sides, capacities, and disabilities will allow you to face the reality of who you are as is. You can accept yourself as is first, and then intend to shift any thoughts, emotions, or behaviors that you dislike or just does not work. This process will create an integration of your internal process and congruency in expression with others, and therefore an experience of peace of mind. So allowing yourself to connect with others from an integrated you with honesty, vulnerability, and clarity about what you want to create in every relationship will bring you wholeness and joy. We live in relationships. We define ourselves in relationships. We survive only because of our relationships, and we grow due to our relationships. And we deserve to have a quality relationship. It starts with us having quality relationship with ourselves first. We'll be right back with research.
Join the conversation every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Dr. Foojan is a radio and TV host, international speaker, psychotherapist, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, The Awareness Path to Create the Life You Want. She brings you the latest research and interviews with experts in the field of cognitive sciences. Anyone who loves to grow and create growth for humanity gets a voice on this call-in show. Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Monday afternoons at 3 p.m. Pacific on Smart Talk KMET 1490 AM and on KMET1490am.com.
Welcome back to the Inner Voice Show. I have two research for you today. So the first one, turns out that relationships are the secret to keeping calm and carrying on. Brigham Young University psychology professor Wendy Birmingham's lab used an infrared camera to put an innovative twist on their latest study of marriage and stress, published in the highly ranked scientific journal PLOS ONE. The experiment worked like this. 40 participating couples tried to complete an intentionally challenging task on the computer. Some of the couples were randomly assigned to work alone. The others got to sit near their spouse and hold their hand. How sweet. While they worked, an infrared camera continuously measured pupil diameter, which is the direct signal of the body's physiological stress response. Now, the neat thing is that the pupil's response within 200 milliseconds to the onset of a stressor, it can immediately measure how someone responds to stress and whether having social support can change that. The experiment initially stressed out participants in both groups, but the spouse support group calmed down significantly sooner, allowing them to work on the task at the reduced stress levels. So the authors say that when we have a spouse next to us and with us, it really helps us navigate and get through the stress we have to deal with in life. That would be amazing, although the right spouse. And we'll talk about Dr. David Weiss about that. Second, research. Research suggests that having a happy spouse, oh yes, leads to a longer marriage, that we know, and now study results show that it is associated with the longer life too. The study was published in Psychological Science, a journal of Association for Psychological Science. The data shows that spousal life satisfaction was associated with mortality regardless of individual socioeconomic and demographic characteristics or their physical health status. So Dr. Olga Strevrova is a researcher at Tilburg University in Netherlands, states, notably spouses' life satisfaction was an even better predictor of participants' mortality than participants' own life satisfaction. Participants who had a happy partner at the beginning of the study were less likely to pass away over the next 8 years compared with participants who had less happy partners. Amazing! The findings underscore the role of individuals' immediate social environment in their health outcomes. Most importantly, it has the potential to extend our understanding of what makes up individuals' social environment by including the personality and well-being of individuals' close ones. Life satisfaction is known to be associated with behaviors that can affect health, including diet and exercise, and people who have a happy, active spouse, for example, are likely to have an active lifestyle themselves. The opposite is also likely to be true. If your partner is depressed and wants to spend the evening eating chips in front of the TV, that's how your evening will probably end up looking like as well. So the authors examined data from a nationally representative survey of about 4,400 couples in the United States who were over age 50, collected data on participants who had spouse or lived-in partners. 99% of the sample couples were heterosexual. For up to 8 years, participants and their spouses reported on life satisfaction and various factors hypothesized to be related to mortality, including perceived partner support and frequency of physical activity. They also completed a self-rated health measures and provided information related to their morbidity as measured by number of doctor-diagnosed chronic conditions, gender, age of the beginning of the study, ethnicity, education, household income, and partner mortality. The findings suggest that greater partner life satisfaction at the beginning of the study was associated with lower participant mortality risk. Specifically, the risk of mortality for participants with a happy spouse increased more slowly than mortality risk for participants with an unhappy spouse. The association between partner life satisfaction and mortality risk held even after accounting for major sociodemographic variables, self-rated health and morbidity, and partner mortality. So exploring plausible explanations for these findings, Srevtrova found that perceived partner support was not related to lower participant mortality. However, higher partner life satisfaction was more related to partners' physical activity, which corresponded to higher participants' physical activity and lower participant mortality. So all you single people out there, listen, find a happy spouse, happy partner, who's also very physically active. That would make you happy and live longer. And the ones who actually have spouses that are not that happy, get them help. Send them to therapy. Get them a trainer, because the more you support them to get happy, guess what happens? You live longer. That's what the study shows. So I am excited to have Dr. Douglas Weiss with us. He's a licensed psychologist and the executive director of Heart to Heart Counseling Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. As a director, Dr. Weiss maintains a number of counselors, support groups, 3 and 5 day intensive workshops, and he's also the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. Dr. Weiss is a frequent guest in the national television, Oprah Winfrey Show, Dr. Phil, Good Morning America, CNN 2020, and hosts Winning at Marriage Show. He's a prolific writer on marriage, addiction, and self-help topics pertaining to intimacy in marriage, singlehood, men's and women's issues, and recovery from addiction. He has authored 27 books, including Intimacy, Anorexia, Lover, Spouse, Upgrading Your Sex Life, and a lot. He is an international conference speaker on healthy marriages and men's recovery. And today we will be actually going through his book, Intimacy, Anorexia. So don't go anywhere. We have exciting interview and information.
Join the conversation every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Dr. Foojan is a radio and TV host, international speaker, psychotherapist, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, The Awareness Path to Create the Life You Want. She brings you the latest research and interviews with experts in the field of cognitive sciences. Anyone who loves to grow and create growth for humanity gets a voice on this call-in show. Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Monday afternoons at 3 p.m. Pacific on Smart Talk KMET 1490 AM and on KMET1490am.com.
Have you ever wished you could just wake up one day, reach across your nightstand, and hit the life reset button? Let's face it, the struggles and frustrations of everyday life leave millions of women and men around the globe yearning for a new way. And the new way is right here in Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine. You can get it now at Foojan.com or Amazon.com. Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want. You deserve it. Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan, and I have great news for you. I'm offering a special time-limited offer to anyone who's interested in online therapy or coaching sessions. I've developed the awareness integration model, which allows in only 12 weeks to raise your self-esteem and confidence and let go of your thoughts and emotions that produce depression and anxiety for you. So call today to schedule your online session and save $600. Call me today at 818-648-2140. That's 818-648-2140. Or go to www.foojan.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I'm so excited to have Dr. Douglas Weiss with us. Welcome to my show, Dr. Weiss.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Excited.
Yes, I was going through your book. I loved it. I loved it because I could tell you that I've gone out with people like that. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of clients who are that type of a personality, and I have clients who are living with that. So I love the book. And for all of you who are listening and viewing our show, we're going to go through the book, Anorexia, Intimacy, Anorexia. And I have a lot of questions from you. So tell me about what made you choose the word anorexia when you were writing the book and you were terming, creating this term.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was a couple things. One, I work a lot with sex addiction. And so there was this mysterious client to the top leaders in our field who would get sober from sexual behavior with others herself, but still not have sex with their wives. And that drove us all crazy. And so early in our field, there was a term called sexual anorexia, but it was really just focused on withholding sex. But people weren't identifying with that because there's a lot of intimacy anorexics who are fine with having disconnected sex with their wife and not be present with her, or a woman who's having disconnected sex with her husband and still not connected. But intimacy anorexia, the actual, that was a paradigm we came up with because it really was much more about avoiding intimacy than sexuality. And so once we put that together, people identify with that all around the world, literally.
And you say intimacy anorexia is the active withholding of emotional, spiritual, and sexual intimacy from the spouse. And for all of you who are listening or watching us, if you have heard about anorexia is an eating disorder, which usually a person withholds eating food, and it's a lot of anxiety and control issues with that. Mm-hmm. And I'm also assuming that you have watched and seen a lot of the anxiety underneath, and then the control that they're holding and withholding their intimacy and love from their partner.
And that it's active, that it's actually an intentional behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you want. So I've worked with thousands of people like yourself. I have over 30 years experience. And I could say, okay, now if I put a gun to your head, what would it take for you to be a good lover or a good spouse to your wife or your husband? And they have the list. Mm-hmm. They know what to do. They know how to get themselves out of the doghouse. They know how to be good for a week or two if they've been a bad boy or girl. They actually know how to love. They just refuse to do it. Mm. So it's a very crazy dynamic if you're living with it.
I bet. For the person who is actively doing it and for the person who's living through it, which they probably feel they're feeling crazy at that moment. The characteristics that you have stated in the book are they're blaming, they're withholding love, withholding praises, withholding sex, withholding spirituality. And please tell me a little bit about that. Withholding feelings and criticizing, and then going through this kind of a passive-aggressive anger, silence. And they're also even controlling money as a resource. And those are some of the characteristics. Say more about those characteristics, please.
Sure. As we go through them, the first number, this is busy. Staying so busy that you have no time for you, for the spouse, to connect, to date, to just be with them. They're volunteering, they're in political, spiritual, recreational activities, they're helping the neighbors, they're busy with the kids, but there always doesn't seem to be enough time for us. And that's a real major characteristic for intimacy anorexia. The next one you mentioned is blame. So here's the thing. Something comes up in your marriage and there's a conflict or there's a problem, and the reflex, and I mean a reflex, it's like emotionally lightning fast, is to blame you. Well, if you wouldn't have, I wouldn't have. If you didn't, I didn't. And it's kind of like, wait a minute, we were talking about you, but now we're talking about me. Why are we talking about me? Because the intimacy anorexic can't be bad. So you have to be bad because they're an object relationship Foojan with themselves. So they want to be in the good box like all of the time. And so if that is what they're aiming for, then if there's anything that's not good, they have to like Velcro it to you. So blaming you, withholding love. Now, what's unique, Foojan, about this is that it'll be specifically how you want to be loved.
Yes.
Right? So if you want quality time, you're not getting it. If you want gifts, probably going to miss your birthday, miss Christmas. If you're someone who just likes to be praised, they'll praise everybody but you. So it's unique to the way that you love. Because if a man or woman divorces person A and then marries person B, and that person B has a different way to be loved, they will actually withhold a different way for person B. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. As you're talking, I have to actually go back. And as I was reading the book, I realized that I was probably for the first, I'm 58, so probably around all the way to age 30, 35. I could clearly say this is who I was. And because it was, and part of the causes you talked about is sexual trauma. And I was, Melissa, between age 3 to 10. And it was more like I could definitely experience that. And a lot of it had to do with me feeling vulnerable in a negative way. Like I would be afraid to put myself in that intensity because that intensity appeared to be abusive in another situation. So then I could see that I had blocked all of that and have put myself in that form. And the only way that I could recognizing it through therapy, obviously, and then coming back and becoming vulnerable and yearning to have that closeness finally, where before I was afraid of it. Is that part of what you also experience with your clients?
Exactly. There's like a 0 point of distance, which is, sexuality with someone in a very open, connected way. And the closer that the anorexic moves towards that point, the scarier it gets for them because they're afraid they're going to lose themselves or they're not going to, they don't know what's going to happen. They're just afraid like it's going to destroy their world. And so they avoid it. And so at any cost. So then this was the sabotaging. So busy, blame, withholding love, withholding praise. So, they just won't tell you, hey, you're an amazing person. I love you. You're awesome. You're intelligent. You're grateful. You're kind. Like you won't hear that coming from them unless they're in trouble. They just won't say it to you, even though they think it. Yeah. It's just the crazy stuff. If I say, okay, tell me 5 things you love about your spouse, they can do it every time. Mm-hmm. Why aren't those coming out of your mouth? Well, because that would create closeness. Because if I told her she was beautiful, she would want to be close to me. If I told her she was hardworking or creative or intelligent, she would want to be close to me. Well, the anorexic game is to maintain distance. So
wouldn't that also be, and I could understand now why you would use anorexia also, wouldn't that also be that if I get close to you, then you will control me and then I would totally be powerless?
Thought. That's not a rational thought.
No, it's not. But
right. So
definitely an irrational one.
Can an anorexic create all kinds of fear so they don't have to give themselves? Yeah. The fear of loss of self, the fear of being controlled, the fear that you'll leave me, the fear that you won't like me when you find me. If you really knew me, you wouldn't love me. They come up with 1,000 rationales to justify why they don't give themselves in a relationship emotionally, spiritually, or sexually. So, you know what I'm saying? There's lots of rationales that come up as they're going towards that closeness. The anorexic has anxiety, so the closer they get, the more anxious they get. So all of these fears and thoughts is kind of like a spooked horse. Mm-hmm. That little mouse is not out to get them, but they have a story
that appears that way.
So, well, it doesn't even appear that way. They just make it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
They created a story to them that it appears that way. Now, you said that the causes in your book that are sexual trauma, attachment issues with the opposite gender parent, and sexual addiction and role model neglect. Talk more about those, please.
Okay. Well, with the intimacy anorexic, okay, so let's take the first one, which is sexual trauma, right? So when you've been traumatized sexually, first of all, that affects all of who you are. And that can make you very concerned about anyone getting close to you or being interpersonal or sexually vulnerable to anyone. That'd be normal if you're 3, 5, or 8 or 10 years old. It would scare you. You don't have abstract reasoning. You don't have the way to process it. So anything that would parallel that trauma could trigger you. And so to avoid that level of intimacy, you set up a structure to protect you. That structure has a name, intimacy anorexia. And when you can see that, then you can dissolve it, but you also have to do the trauma work.
Right.
Okay. And so you have to deal with the abuse or the neglect or the injury that you have that is causing you to kind of say, stay this far away from me because I'm scared if you get closer. So that dynamic for sure. Sexual addiction, there's 6 types of sex addicts, but basically someone who has a sex addiction is going to be using sexuality, usually fantasy or pornography, in a self-stimulating way or others in an object relationship. Well, then here you are, you connect to me. You want to see me. You have your own needs. The fantasy person doesn't have any needs. Like, I don't know what to do with your needs. I don't know what to do with your emotions, because when I make up a story in my brain, I'm in control of every thought, every word, and it's all about me. And now you're asking me to engage you and to leave me, to connect to you, and to have that fluidity between the two of us. I don't know how to do that. So I'll just disconnect and go to fantasy world. Okay. And so sex addiction creates an object relationship, emotional immaturity, spiritual maturity, moral immaturity. So it's very hard. Now, the attachment with the cross-gender parent. So if you're a woman, dad was distant, maybe he died, or he was a workaholic, or he was an alcoholic, or he was just not there. He sat in front of the TV or the newspaper, depending how old you are. And so that not being there, that disconnected, there was no way for you to actually attach to the opposite gender. So your little heart gave up, doesn't even expect it. And so you don't have any familiar patterns of having intimacy with the opposite gender. Now, the role model neglect is usually where there's 1 or 2 parents where there's no intimacy. So your little heart couldn't attach to anything, to anyone. And so you were being managed, not related to. And so you learn how to do life in a way that manages things. And so you're more likely to want to create a functionship with another person than a relationship. Because relationships are hard. But I can tell you, I picked up the kids, I did the laundry, I had sex with you, and I took the garbage out. I can go through my functionship with you. He could say, well, I worked hard, I cleaned the garage, I put gas in your car. Okay, great. But I don't know you. And I feel alone. And what are we doing? And we're just functioning? And the answer is generally yes. I had a situation today where I went through an assessment and there is no marriage. They have money together. They have kids together, but they don't date. There's no friends. There's no connectivity spiritually. The sexuality's been gone for quite a while. There's no relationship there. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense, yes. And I've also seen with a lot of my clients where a pseudo concept begins at the beginning of the relationship, but the minute that they get kind of comfortable in the relationship, this happens. And then usually when the question shows up as what's going on with you, it's more like I'm losing my intimacy because, like you said, I'm not getting love the way I want. I'm disappointed. I'm not going to put myself out there. And then I close the door and then go into work, become busy, do all my other parts. And with this conversation in my head that, there's no point in that intimacy, and that intimacy is no longer going to get created. And that's where a lot of affairs also happen, where, somebody jumps that beginning of a relationship shows up for them again. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, when I do an intake on someone, whether they're intimacy anorexic, sex addict, or just marriage, when I do my intake, a lot of very common theme for intimacy anorexic is very short-term relationships or long-distance relationships before the one long-term marriage. And so basically, the relationships they were in before, they get to the point of, hey, let's really commit and connect. Oh, no, let's not do that. And there's like 5, 6, 7, 9, 12 of those. And then for whatever reason, they get married. And it's the only relationship that lasts more than 6 months or a year. And they don't know how to do intimacy. So then the other person in the marriage starts having pain, but they keep doing dance and, well, if I do this or that, maybe I'll get love. And then go on for 3 to 5 years before they realize there's something wrong here. It can go another 5 years before they run out of gas to say, I can't live here anymore. You know what I'm saying? So they have so I look at people's relationship history, and a lot of times that gives me a lot of information.
So you also talked about patterns, which is avoiding intimacy. They need safety, but their version of safety as if they're within themselves, they actually are apparently safe. They're afraid of being flooded, and they need control. And then they have a commitment actually to create a distance versus a commitment to be close.
Yeah, let's go backwards on that. So one of my favorite expressions is they're married to themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Like what you got what I was saying. So they walk down the aisle and they say, I'm going to marry you. I'm going to love, honor, cherish you, forsake all others, right? And then what happens is when they said forsake all others, they meant, well, maybe I wouldn't have sex with other people, but they had no idea they'd have to give up their own life and forsake themselves. Letting the two become one, like they say this in front of a rabbi or a pastor or, New Age person or whoever. The concepts are very similar. Yeah. I'm going to leave me to protect you and honor you and take care of you. Well, the anorexic has no plan to do that. So it's kind of a scam from the beginning. But they won't forsake themselves. They stay married to themselves. So if they're going to protect somebody, they're going to protect them. They're going to let you take the bullet, let you get under the bus, throw you under the bus. They're not going to protect you. Okay, so they're more married to themselves. So that's about happens a lot. So that intimacy anorexia. Now about being safe, which is really funny because the way it is that it's kind of that narrative. I need you to do X for me to feel safe. Well, safety is an emotion, so I can't give you emotion. You're going to have to choose that yourself. I can't make you feel safe. But because I put that on you, I can always have a kind of like ace in my pocket to push you away. I don't feel safe. Boom, we're done.
You speak as if they're intentional.
It is intentional. Now
that they know that it's intentional. Do they know that it's intentional and they do it, or is it more like a subconscious intentional? And when you kind of like bring it to their attention, they're first going to denial, and same as any other addiction. Is it that they know that it's intentional and they actually are doing it as like a strategic concept, like an aware? They're aware of the strategic concept, or is it more like a subconscious game that it's being handled, and they although it is all strategic, but they are kind of away from it themselves?
Yes. The answer is yes.
On both levels.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you can't hit a bullseye 1,000 times without aiming.
Right.
Can't be done. So if you are creating consistent distance, you're doing it intentionally. Mm-hmm. Now, you may be less aware of it at times here and there, but there's definitely times if you get your button pushed, you feel rejected or you feel hurt. You know what subjects to bring up to tick him off or to tick her off. You know what to do to make them get so mad at you so you can blame them for why we're distant, which is the absolute gold star for intimacy anorexic. Hey, let's have distance and let me get you to take the blame for it. Okay. So there's a lot of strategy. When you actually outline what they're doing in their behavior, it makes them more aware. But a lot of times it's kind of like catching your kid with their hand in the cookie jar, like, oh, you caught me. Like they know. See what I'm saying? At some level. Now, sometimes they might have a blind spot, but generally they're aware that they are maintaining this kind of distance, and they have their games that they can play. And actually, when people watch the Intimacy Anorexia DVD or they read the book, they feel like, wow, somebody actually gets what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's a little smirk to that, like, hey, I just got caught. Mm-hmm. But it's a real deal. So sometimes it's not necessarily, well, let me see if I can take my wife off today or my husband off today. But we were getting along really fine, and it looked like we were headed to the bedroom. So let's talk about your mom, who I hate.
So say more about all the strategies that these people do.
Well, I mean, the strategy is going to be dependent on the person they're married to. Okay, so if I know like silence is going to make you really hurt and angry and go away, then I'll use silence. If I think being an angry bully is going to shut you up or move you away or get you to slam the door and leave me, I'm going to use what is specifically designed to make you move. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the strategies can be in many ways, like even money, like we talked about money earlier. I might be very wealthy. So my strategy is you can do whatever you want. You just can't ask me any real authentic questions. Mm-hmm. You just go buy your little purse, honey, or your shoes, or more makeup, or do whatever you want to do, get your hair redone or whatever. But our deal is you can't ask me anything. You can't ask me to be into it.
So this showed up for me, for our listeners. Can you define intimacy?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, intimacy is me opening up my heart and being able to be flawed with you like I could a friend and say, I'm not really proud of this today, but this is what's going on with me, or this is what I'm really thinking. I'm not even sure it makes sense what I'm thinking, but can I open up and just share with you and really trust that our relationship is strong enough for my flaws. Mm-hmm.
So being naked, being vulnerable, showing you every part of me and feeling safe that I do, but I also create the safety myself within me that allows me to open myself fully to you, who is my mate.
Sure. I mean, you see this, like if you've been a counselor as long as you have, if you've ever done any kind of groups, and the person just opens their heart. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, 3 or 4 ladies or men will do the same. They'll say, well, yeah, me too. And here's what and you can just see intimacy happen because one person felt safe enough to have it, whether they were asking permission or not. They're just going to be real. And so in a marriage, it's the same thing. If I open up, I can trust myself and I can trust you enough that I can be authentic. And I don't have to be cheerled, and I don't have to be told a lie that I'm wonderful. I can hear you. And even if you have something with wisdom to say to me, even if I might not like it, I can hear you and I don't attack you because of it.
And you have also brought this into the world of addiction, and you call intimacy anorexia a form of addiction. Mm-hmm. Please say why.
Well, and this is kind of an interesting thing because I get claps and boos for that one.
I can definitely see it being an addiction. I've worked with addicts for about 30 years also, so I could definitely see the dynamic, but please share it with us. What got you to do that?
Well, because I work in the addiction field. First, alcohol and drugs, sex addiction. I'm an expert. I'm the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. So, I mean, I really get addiction. And when you see this person who, even after they know what they're doing, they keep doing it, and it doesn't make any sense, and they can't quit by themselves, that kind of sounds like addiction. They can't even quit after the wife leaves. It's kind of like they're so committed to be married to them that they can't really join. And so it doesn't make any sense. There's consequences. They tried and failed, right? If you just go through the major kind of key factors of addiction, they use more and more and more, okay? It fits. Just bang, 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 bang. And in the book, I outline kind of like the 6 or 8 characteristics of addiction and go through each one from an anorexic perspective. And the other thing is the 12 steps works with them. So we've had this book out for quite a while, and we have groups for intimacy anorexia, and they work the workbook, they work the 12 steps. And it works. they start acknowledging that they're powerless over this. They start making phone calls to someone else when they're using anger to push her away, or if they're making themselves busy, or if they're blaming their husband for why they're not taking responsibility for their life. And so it works. So
I can understand, because of the nature of 12-step connecting with each other, how much 12-step would work with this concept.
Absolutely, because you're building intimacy in the group, but then you're also you're taking those skills and you're moving them towards your spouse, but you also have accountability, and you also have to make progress. And so there's that little bit of push that happens, and they use the same language, and they're we have phone groups from all over the country and all over the world. So the guy in South America is doing the same gig as the guy from North Carolina, and they laugh. They go, "Oh, you do that too?" Yeah. Well, something that universal, cross languages, cross cultures, cross colors, cross religions, can be identified. Well, that's usually an addiction.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, a drunk knows how to talk to a drunk, no matter what country they're from.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And anorexics get the whole thing when they're with each other. So it's a really fascinating dynamic. But they can heal. I mean, we're not near ending, but they can heal. And
definitely, because I think every human being yearns for that type of an intimacy. And although they might hold it up for any other reasons to just withhold it, but the yearning is kind of gnawing at everyone from the inside. And it's one of those things. It's like you're a fraud, and then you're yearning to be found out, because there is a part of you that really wants to love and be intimate.
Absolutely. And the thing is that once they learn it's possible, because there are some people, like the people that with the cross attachment thing, and the people with the parental stuff, like there's a desire to connect. And when you actually show them the skills it takes, and they actually practice with their wife or husband every day, and they start getting this attachment going. I've had many who were like, "Wow, I didn't know you could do this. This is fun." It's like riding a bike, and they want to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, thank you for just giving me the skills to do it. And those are a lot easier to deal with than the people who often have the trauma or the addiction, because they got to deal with harder stuff.
Mm-hmm. And tell us also about the mates, the spouses. What is the experience of the person who is experiencing this constantly, and they're being blamed and criticized, and at one point they buy into it, and at one point they probably feel powerless against it, and at one point they'll just get probably rage and angry about being blamed and not having that type of an intimacy? What do you see in them, and what works for them?
Well, that's a great question, because they're the ones that usually will seek help. It's kind of like if you're married to an alcoholic, it's the spouse of the alcoholic that's going to therapy. Yeah. Okay, because how do you deal with this rage? How do you deal with the puking? How do you deal with them not going to work, or her not getting out of bed, and and not having any friends? And so it's usually the spouse, like we're talking about this. We call them married and alone. It's usually the spouse who is feeling the pain, and so she feels alone. She feels disconnected. If she's not having sex, she feels rejected. Or if she's having sex without intimacy, she feels used, abandoned. Our research shows her self-esteem will lower. Chances of depression increase significantly. And she can have all kinds of health issues because she's unloved. Mm-hmm. So she can gain a lot of weight because of, wanting to be loved. She can eat carbs or sugar or start abandoning herself. And you're right, they go through stages of anger. They go through stages of hopelessness. And then sometimes they have to divorce. And it's not because they want to, but because they can't literally emotionally live. It's like the air, and it's like they get so much deprivation. It's like the moisture of their body is leaving them. And there's a place of crisis where if they keep letting this person extract from them and not get anything back from them, they know they're going to hit a flat line somewhere. And it's just too expensive. So they usually divorce to live, not because they're not loving their spouse. So usually really good men and women who marry these people. And intimacy anorexics are really good at picking loyal people for whatever reason. And these people will go a decade or more longer than they probably should, trying to love someone who's actively pushing you away.
And you said women, and I'm assuming that you have found on average that more men come up with the intimacy anorexic patterns than women? Is that what you have seen?
Not particularly. I mean, I see more men because I deal with sexual addiction, but I deal a lot with couples.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very common with women to withhold their heart because what percentage, 30% of women or more have been sexually abused. Well, right there. And then with the internet, the increasing chances of women being sex addicted are increasing significantly. So there's two factors. And how many women never hear "I love you" from their dad? How many women have a hole from dad not being a man and being a child himself and not really nurturing the daughter's heart that you're amazing and smart and capable and I have your back and I'm with you and I have integrity and I'm not hurting you, I'm not cheating on your mom. How many women have that dad? Mm-hmm. Right? So you take all those variables, which in our culture, in Western culture, is increased. All the three of those variables are increasing. So you're going to have a lot of women who have intimacy anorexia because of all of those increases.
Yeah, and I can see that a lot of men go into getting busy at their work or hobbies, and a lot of women tend to put themselves in a position of completely having that type of relationship with their children, but then having that excuse of "I'm busy with the kids" and completely avoiding intimacy with their spouse after a while.
Absolutely, and to be fair, it's human nature to spend time with what you're getting reinforcement from.
Yeah.
You know, if you're getting positive reinforcement in your marriage, you're making time to get home, not avoid home.
Right.
If you're getting ignored, you go home and your wife doesn't even talk to you for 2 hours, why go home?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they stop at the bar or they go work out or they go wax their car or whatever, because I'm going to be ignored anyway. I haven't had sex in 6 weeks. Like, no matter what I do, I'm not loved. I'm not wanted. She's just there for the paycheck. I know it. She knows it. Why go home? Or with the woman who feels like, you know what? It doesn't matter what I do. I can't get him to say I love you. He won't touch me. He pretends like we're happy, but when we get to bed, he turns his back to me. I hate him at the core of my being. I hate what he's doing to my heart and life, but I have to pretend because I've got these 6, 9, and 12-year-olds who need a dad. And so, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to spend my time with the kids because at least I get some positive energy. I get love you, mom, hug you, and that kind of stuff. So human nature is geared towards positive reinforcement.
Yeah. And it's hard to be alone, but it's harder to be alone when you're married with someone, to feel that loneliness when someone is actually there.
No, when you're actively, that's why the word active is such an important part of this whole process. When you are actively being rejected, you are actually actively being isolated from, you are actively being blamed and criticized, and you feel like, I can't win, then you're in something that's kind of crazy and you get hopeless after a while. And so you'll medicate hopelessness with busyness or getting in shape or drinking or, playing tennis with the girls at the club. You'll find a way to medicate because pain requires medicine. Mm-hmm. It's not complicated. If I have a toothache, I want to take something for that toothache. If my heart aches because I'm not being loved, I want to do something to subsidize that.
So when a person acknowledges this about themselves or their mate, and they start allowing themselves to be vulnerable, and maybe even test it out in different places, maybe begin vulnerability and communicating in that space of vulnerability and intimacy with friends, with their relatives, with their kids and all of that, and then feel comfortable enough then to start testing it out with their mate, because obviously they've created a culture at one point of separation with their mate, due to all of this, and bring it back and then start testing it into the system again. Do you think that would work, or do they definitely need our help?
Well, it doesn't work because they're already good at that. Mm-hmm. Like I heard someone say just recently, everybody loves my husband. Mm-hmm. Their pastor loves him. Their neighbors love him. Everyone thinks, John is wonderful. Or if it's Mary, everyone thinks Mary's wonderful because Mary is wonderful in the relationship. She shows up, she cares, she's empathetic, because there's no risk of intimacy with anybody there. That's why intimacy anorexia only shows up in marriage or a significant relationship. It's there where the paralysis shows up. So they could be experts. Actually, I work with a lot of therapists who are intimacy anorexics.
Mm-hmm.
They're great therapists, but you don't only marry to them.
Yeah.
Because when they go home, they read a book, they ignore you, they turn on TV, they're not sensual, they're not connecting, they're not sexual, they don't engage, even though they do that for a living. And so, no, work is between the husband and the wife. It's getting them to start sharing feelings. And when you want to, we can talk about solutions, but it's getting them to attach to that one person that the work is. Now, most times it takes someone like you or me moving that needle for that to be, and having accountability on, well, it's great that you did your group work. It's great that you made your phone calls to the guys in your group, but you haven't done your daily exercises with your wife in a whole month. You're not sober.
Yeah. That's a lot of work. So for everyone who's listening and watching us, this is an amazing book. I learned a lot. I'm going to go back and kind of go through different parts of it again. I really suggest, I'm going to give it to a lot of my clients. And I really suggest for all of you who are listening or watching us to definitely get the book. You have audio on this too, right?
We have a DVD and a download, and it's on Kindle. They can go to intimacyanorexia.com and they can find, it's in every format that's possible to be in.
Babe, beautiful. Okay, we got only a couple more minutes. I want to give you the opportunity to say whatever you haven't said and you must say for everybody to know.
Well, what I must say is that there's hope. I have couples who haven't had sex in 5, 10, 15, and 20 years who follow what's in intimacy anorexia. They connect to each other. They like each other. They're having sex, and they live happily ever after. I get email after email after email about, thank you for changing our lives. Thank you. Now we're best friends again. He's really present with me. She's connected with me. We're engaged. We're intimate. So it doesn't really matter where you start or how you even got there. In recovery, it's you taking the next step towards recovery. And if you do that and you take the next step, you get to look and feel better than ever and have the best life. And so, it's a wonderful thing to do that.
Absolutely. Because that's the joy of our life. When our intimate relationship works, everything else kind of starts working for us, or at least it gives us that kind of contentment and the happiness inside to go and create all that's out there. And whenever the marriage doesn't work, it really puts a damper on every other area of our life, even though if it feels successful.
Absolutely, Foojan, you're right. And I appreciate that we can get this information out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, I was just talking to someone else, they don't know what they don't know. And once you have knowledge of this, you can go, oh, this is what's going on, and there's actually solutions. And I don't have to stay alone in this marriage, and we can actually get to a better place. Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you. You have so many books. I had no idea as I went through your bio that you have 27 books. So for everyone, again, who's listening to us, please go to your website too. What is your website? Can you tell us about your website?
intimacyanorexia.com, or they can go to Dr. Doug Weiss, DrDougWiss.com.
Yes, because you have a lot of amazing books that people just shouldn't have just stop on this one. They should just go and read all of your other books too. Right. So it was great having you. Thank you so much for being on my show.
All right, you have a great day.
Thank you. For everyone else, thank you for being, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And we'll be back with you next week. Bye-bye.
The Inner Voice Show is a dialogue between the host and the listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
1490 AM Smart Talk Radio KMET. Banning, Beaumont, and Redlands. 1490 AM Radio.
From ABC News. I'm Daria Albinger. 11 minutes after takeoff, a helicopter crashes onto the roof of